Hello, thank you. First and foremost, I will be trying to inhale this mic the entire time as a result of losing my voice yesterday, so this is already off to a cracking start. Secondly, I'm very sorry if you do want to learn something about sound effects libraries. I'm not your man, but if you want to talk about actors, definitely open for questions later. Yes, so my name is, hang on, does this work? Decisive click, delightful. Hi, my name is Josh Whedon. I am the creative, what is my title? Creative Production Lead for Pitstop Productions, so which is an all-encompassing title covering many hats. I am lead voice director on a number of our projects. I also communicate well with our motion capture teams and audio teams, as well as with our clients, to try and sort of bridge the gap between the technology, the creative, and the actual rolling production on everything that we do involving performance. Here is some stuff what we've done. It was all very good fun, I have to say. Yes, so referring to my notes, my main purpose of what I'd like to talk about today is to sort of, for many of you in this room, I understand a lot of you are very much industry veterans with some very big titles behind you. So this is more focused towards more like indies, as it were, like people who have not really engaged with suppliers like us as to what to expect, what choices you have the option to make, and how involved you want to be in the process. So just as a heads warning, this might be teaching a granny to suck eggs for a fair few of you. So, yes, but what it can do though is at least give you a stronger relationship with your partners as you go on, hopefully. Cool. So the first question I have for you when it comes to all of your titles is, why choose to get actors involved in the first place? Why choose performance? I mean, there are many, it is a, compared to many other aspects of development, there are few and far between who can undertake the process of recording, editing, mixing dialogue or face performance capture sessions and implementation. You can't really, most companies can't do that internally. Therefore, it comes to the point of having to outsource that to a supplier like ourselves, to Adele, to various other people. And so why would you choose to hand over a large section of the player's experience into others' hands? This is the question that you need to answer, really. At a fundamental level, performance connects. A human hearing the voice of another human infers so much more information, a human, robot, alien, dwarf. A physical performance infers a greater connection with your player than text on screen, I believe, ever really could. It does work. It's not necessarily a thing. Mario has been doing fine for 40 years with very little dialogue. But if you want to, it depends on the type of story that you're telling, how engaged you want your players to be, what kind of engagement with your narrative that you want to encourage will lend itself towards different types and different levels and different depths of performance in one way or another. Thing to consider. And there are so many tools at your disposal now, between from just voice appearing as a random audio file to full meta-human characters realized in UE5. That integration is now simpler than it ever has been before, cheaper than it ever has been before, and it actually gives that kind of physicality and vocal connection, which is which although keyframe animation is fantastic, it is very hard to replicate the nuances when they're all in perfect sync. So yeah, but it's up to you and your story as to whether you feel it needs that. Cool. Right, so that's one fundamental question as to what if you feel that performance is actually appropriate for your game, and if so, what level. So the next one that you need to answer is the lens of your game. In a highly pretentious fashion, this is how I like to approach all the projects that we undertake. So in most forms of performance in the world is viewed through a single linear lens. You've got the camera, you've got the stage, you've got the viewpoint of the audience, as it were. Not so much with games, because the player can go everywhere. They can see everything. They have a unique perspective to be able to move around in a world entirely. And therefore, rather than dictating what they see and how that fits into your world, every single aspect of your world needs to fit into that lens which they go around. So every single style of dialogue performance, every single movement of the body, every single subtle nuance of audio needs to actually adhere to the general vision that you're trying to portray, the emotion that you want to express. So establishing what that lens is very important. Once that's established, how you want your player to feel on a moment-to-moment basis, it will inform every single decision you make from there on in. So whether you want to involve facial capture, whether you want to involve motion capture, if you just want voice recording, how animated it needs to be. Is it cartoony? Is it serious? You know, once that you've had the thought and come up with a solid touchstone for that lens, yeah, everything else will gel nicely. Just going to check I have no other notes. Oh, bugger. There we go. Okay, cool. So you have thought about your lens, you've come up with like what you can easily do is come up with various references, either forms of media, which are always good, easy, touchstones, films, books, movies, plays, things that you've seen before, which it can act as shorthand to express how you want your world to feel, how you want your player to feel in your world. So the next stage, obviously, is what is a performance partner, or a partner, an outsourcing partner, a supplier, people like ourselves, and how we operate. So yes, a dedicated team tasking with bringing the narrative of your story to life through performance is the quippy version I tried to come up with to summarize an awful lot of different industries. So we offer things like casting, finding your actors, once again, informed by your lens. All casting will dictate the sort of the style of the performance, the type of voices, the tone, color, texture, that kind of thing. With those materials in your lens established, that will go slide easily into casting. Recording and capturing, let's say how much detail of an actual human performance you want in your game, once again, informed by that lens, which is what a performance partner will provide. Direction, yet again, it comes down to supporting that idea of the lens that you've created for your game, the style, the tone, and the texture. The direction will dictate and steer the choices an actor has through their performance in order to adhere to that. You don't want anyone suddenly going big, weird, and wild and wacky if you're doing a very serious war drama. Those kind of things, just to ensure that continuity throughout the entire world. Post-production, similarly. So it's got standard post-production, which is just a nice cleanup, edit, declicking, deplosives, chuck it in-game, or creative, creating voices, creating creatures, whether you want your external partner to do that or yourselves to do that. That's a choice that you have to make at some point. But yeah, once again, informed by the general view of the world that you live in, that you're creating. And then once again, implementation. Definitely Adele is a fantastic person to speak to about this, but also others as well. But yeah, how the actual sound is implemented in the game itself will also have a great way, is another way that you can enforce that general worldview, that lens of the world that you're creating. And yeah. So that is definitely a very large phase, which I didn't really think about until I saw it on a big screen. So if you're choosing someone to partner with, there are one fundamental thing that you need to come across, because you are giving over an awful lot of, in an extent or another, and there's an awful lot of control that you're handing off to a third party, and therefore you need trust. Now, that trust can be informed by three main sort of things: technology, people who've done it before. If you've got like a very high-tech, very specific process that you want to undertake, you've got a very complicated pipeline involving motion capture, voice capture, lots of post-processing. People who having some kind of track record with that is amazingly useful. And irritating, I could not get those in sync, right? Ethos. It might be a case that you want specific representation within your game. It might be a case that you want a certain type of relationship with your actors and your performers to be hold up to your company's ethical standards. Finding a partner who does that as well, also highly important. And last is experience. So these can all be summarized to a similar kind of shtick, but people who've done this before, at least, or who have got experience in doing this in some way or another, is a good way to build that foundation of trust in your supplier. Because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, you're handing over a large amount of the player experience to someone else, so you've got to trust them and build on that relationship. So if you've found your team, you've started working, just a little quick go through of people who you're probably going to meet at some point or another. So there's normally a project management team, or team people. There will be those who you will communicate, who will run the main sort of operation of your comms, back and forth, emailing, exchanging, sorting out contracts, details, dates, those kind of things, sort of like boots on the ground of actually getting the project rolling. After that, you probably have a director. You might supply your own director, you might bring another director in, or the company will provide one for you. Depends on how you want to operate, but they will undertake the interpretation of your story and guide that and enhance the performance from the actors, adhering to the worldview that you've established with your lens. Then a casting director or casting team. finding the actors who work with your project. So once again, this is wonderful. You can go elsewhere, you can go in-house, whatever suits your pipeline and your process best. Yes, they can lead the casting process, advising on fees, casting methodologies, as well as creating materials, shortlisting potential clients. You, I'm sure, don't want to listen to 500 reads of the same person doing one role, I'm assuming. So rather than that, a nice curated shortlist of those 500 to the top 5 makes everyone's lives just a little bit easier. Instead, that's the casting's job to listen to all those. So the main issue with the casting director. And then studio technicians. So like audio engineers, motion capture engineers, whatever sort of various technical aspects of both pre and post-production technicians. At some point or another, other people you will meet along the way, but everyone is all driving towards delivering your product. But yeah, kind of people that you will probably come across. And yes, dang it, I did post-production separately. But yes, post-production in every sense is taking raw data, editing, cleaning, and undertaking finishing processes to turn them into in-game ready assets is a really hard way to summarize about 5 different fields into one thing. But yes, so taking whatever is captured in session, cleaning it, polishing it, so you can just drop it into game in one way or another. Cool. And right, so the last real question that needs to cover is, what can you provide? So throughout this entire recording process, which can take months, years, or sometimes even a few days, depends on the scale of voice in your project, what can you provide as a client, from our perspective, as a developer, in order to smooth the process? Well, the first thing you can provide is a script. That is fundamentally very handy to have. Ideally timely. The more time that we have access to the script, the more time that we can read it, we can understand it, we can engage with it, we can offer comments, we can pass it on to actors, NDA permitting, so they come in prep. So every session is the most effective, the most efficient use of time. But also the nature of these things happens, they get delayed, it happens. So everyone's had to cold read on the day, but in an ideal world, we'd all get them weeks in advance and be able to lavishly examine them, but here's what it is. Thank you very much indeed. That's really kind. Descriptions after that. So characters, world, scene, what stuff looks like and how it moves. When the wonders of a vocal booth is that it's a very small box with a microphone in it. Once of a mocap volume is it's a slightly larger box with fewer microphones in it, perhaps a box inside that box. But it's not a fully realized world. Any description that you can give to us in terms of what your set location, what it smells like, what it feels like, what sounds are in the background, can aid the actor's immersion in that world and offer a better performance. And so, like, what your character looks like, how they're dressed, all those things, any images, details, fantastically useful. We never get bored of seeing materials. I think that's fair to say. Yeah, so the question which someone says is, oh, how much you want to see about our 70-page lore diary? The answer is always yes. We will see everything. Just send it if you're happy to share it. We're always more than happy to look at it. Yes, images, artwork, locations, items. If someone needs to pick up a box, they need to know how big that box is because that will affect how their hand moves. If they're hulking, even if you're just doing voice and dialogue, if you need the sound of someone pushing open a door, is the door made of plywood? Is it made of solid wood? Is it made of stone? That kind of stuff. So images can easily, once again, plant our actor in that scene and deliver the best performance in relation to their story. If there's in-game footage, once again, incredible. We're basically going down the hierarchy of stuff that'd be lovely to have and super important, but starting off with that script. How in-game footage, even if it's not of in a character moving around the world, informs how they move, how they stroll, how they hold themselves, and that also, once again, informs character. Because if you've got some pre-rendered animation of someone sort of very cockily standing on one hip, then that sort of gives a very different attitude to the performance compared to someone who's quite small and timid and curled down here. So once again, in-game footage is delightful. And your time is the last thing you can provide. There is, depending on the size and scope and scale of the project, your time is obviously very valuable. And if it's a case of how much you want to be in session. Sessions can run for months, they can run for years, they can run for days. But it's how much, whether you guys have the resources within your teams to actually dedicate someone to actually attend, listen, offer advice, to sign off on things, to make decisions in the moment, which questions always come up. But yeah, that is, once again, a choice that you guys have to make. And it sort of ties into a fundamental aspect of how prescriptive you want to be. It could be a case that you find a supplier who you just very loosely sort of hand over to, saying, well, here's the kind of thing that we're looking for. We will just say yes or no once we get it back, but it's over to you to take care of. Or the other option, which is we will be in every session. We'll be there to offer advice and questions. We've got very clear ideas as to how we want this all to look and sound. We'd like you to work with us in that. And that is a decision which ties into your own development team's ethoses as to how you guys want to work it, and both can lead to really satisfying conclusions. It's lovely to know when people have got a really clear idea. It's also lovely if people go, here is some freedom. Let's just see what comes out of this. So yeah, that's a decision to make. Yes, and then the final, this is very much for those who've never done this before, how to get the most out of your time in session. So there are various different factors which will affect your entire production pipeline. First and foremost, I'm really chuffed when I found out how the animations worked about this slide, about foreign timelines and time scales. If you've got 50,000 words, but you've only got 2 days to record it in, the easiest way is to go into various studios at the same time rather than try and kill people in one studio. So the amount of time that you have to record, as well as the amount of material you have to record, will dictate your recording method. Now, if you're in a situation where everything's very tight, but you need to get it over the line, you need to go into multiple studios, that means that you have multiple directors working on the same project at the same time, which means that whatever resources you had for being able to attend those sessions then need to be spread around. So it's a case of thinking, once again, what that relationship is like with how much your involvement is affected by your timelines and timescales. Also, if you've got a 100,000 word game or a 1 million word game, who is going to be the one to sit in on all those sessions drinking tea? Next. Recording, capturing methods and technologies. Things move at different paces. Facial capture is slower than just voice recording. Performance capture is slower than face recording, but it depends on how much of those aspects you want in your projects will dictate sort of the recording speeds, and once again, your timelines will be affected by that. The only reason that we say that these things take longer is because there's more factors to consider. Someone could easily fluff a line, you can copy, edit it, drop it in, comp it together, move on from there. But with a performance capture take, that's also the body that needs to be redone, which is the face that needs to be redone, which is the voice that needs to be redone. So things tend to be slower as a result of it. But it's then the trade-off to the quality of the performance that you're getting for your character is something to consider. Casting considerations as well. If they're based in the UK, if they're based in the US, if they're US but also union or non-union, these things will have a massive roll-on effect on availability. SAG in the US has some very strict rules on how your sessions need to run, and that which will affect your processing time, your session times. So if you want to go union for a wider pool of talent or for just ethical reasons, then that obviously perfectly fine. It will also affect how your recording sessions need to operate and run. If you want to go non-union, it's more similar to how we work in the UK, where we've got a lot more flexibility in terms of the session times, but that pool of actors is significantly smaller. So just things to consider. And once again, your involvement. We've had this before with clients who want to be in every session, which is delightful, but they're based in America, which means that our day starts in the afternoon, so we don't have the full day anymore. And that kind of thing will also, once again, affect your timelines and how quickly your project can be done, depending on when you actually need stuff delivered. So all of these are just various factors to sort of culminate and take in and consider when planning your recording project, and us as providers can advise on and just make estimations with every different thing to consider. But obviously each one of these does affect the rolling on knock-on effects of your timeline planning. Now, cool. I have a blank slide here and I can't remember why. Any questions? That was why. Generally, I'd say I'm really bad at writing presentations, but I'm quite good at answering questions. So if anyone does have any, please feel free to go crazy. That's. Oh, is there a roving mic, or is there just shout from the bar?
You talked about like stuff a client can provide to you, like scripts or art assets. What's the best set of materials you've been provided with, and why was that?
The best set of materials we got was a breakdown on a project which is coming out this year, but we can't talk about yet. Where the I can explain what the materials were.
Cool,
but it doesn't relate. But it was a full character breakdown. So every single character was supplied with a full bio with artwork, and in a lovely, gorgeous spreadsheet. Also, then they'd also done the effort of saying like, well, here's some preliminary groupings of characters as well. So if we do get to that casting stage, they've really done some of the work, but then we rejigged and advised, but they're open to that, as well as animatics for every single cutscene that we were doing. The guy on the other end of the line was in the US. He attended every session. And yeah, he's done this for years, and he knew exactly what we needed and just gave it. So, but the answer is always as much as you can give us. Cool. Honestly, it's always better. So,
thank you. Cool. Cheers.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Hi, Josh. Thank you again for doing this at such short notice. I have a question. You're getting a script. You have a recording date set. You're reading through the script, and you realize that the character's written in a way that could be quite grating with an audience. How would you go about solving that?
As in
and it's unintended, by the way. That's maybe important to say. This is a character that's written in a certain way, and you read it and you go, well, if I think about how this is going to sound, that might not have the intended effect.
That can be interesting because annoying characters are, you see what I mean, someone who's quite grating and irritating on the ear, or just their mannerisms or their personality.
It's more that it's written and they didn't really realize that this character might actually not come across as they wanted to, because in writing it's fine, but you're thinking, oh, somebody's going to speak these lines. How would you manage that?
Well, it can be a case of if you can flag it, or once you sort of realize it in session, you then start that communication with the client and just say, well, maybe we should soften this here, give them more humanity, or you lean into it, then make it an aspect of their personality, asking the question then, okay, why is this person like this? And then using that it might be in this initial instance, this meeting them, they are bloody annoying, but that could be a jumping off point to explore the character's greater arc to get to that point. And so they might start off as irritating, but as the character grows and the actor works with the character, that you learn more about them and something that becomes a facet rather than just a trope. Is that answer?
It's a really good answer. It also explains why you need somebody in the session, right?
Oh, yeah.
That can help with that. Is there anything you can give people that are writing scripts or thinking about scripts that is like, think about this with your character?
Read it out loud. Or even if it's just muttering to yourself, until words come out of human mouths, you will not have an idea as to how it sounds. And I love it when people just deliver like a paragraph sentences. It's like, yeah, that's how people speak. Exactly. I do have an annoying habit as a director of going through and deleting exclamation marks, because generally people don't shout as much as we think we do. And also making sure that people stumble when trying to say something witty, because no one's that witty in real life. If you can write a really cool line, which is like a lovely bit of fun, but normally when someone's speaking, it's very rare that they can just shoot something very quickly off the hip, and therefore allowing that moment to gather your thought before saying the smart thing. Those kind of moments sort of humanize people, I found. So, any more? Hello.
Thank you. You discussed some production solutions in regards to maybe spreading out sessions across multiple studios happening at the same time. Have you ever had to mitigate, or how do you mitigate recording audio in different environments, maybe with different equipment? Does it come out differently? Do you just say that's post's problem, or are there things that you can do to make sure that everything that you record, if in different environments, is still cohesive?
Yes, is the answer to that. Well, normally it's a case of if we're using multiple environments, we will always initially ask for like a test sample. Let's see what we're working with. And then we will either approve or disapprove the baseline studio. Can we work with this? Can we not? Because obviously we want everything to be gloriously consistent. And that's done by our post-production team, because they're the ones who are going to have to deal with it at the end anyway. There is a mixture of like EQ matching, or as well as in the mastering process, there's a way to unify all delivered audio from various sources. Every studio is going to sound slightly different, even no matter what you do, because age of equipment, room dynamics, there's always going to be a subtle difference. And so it's a job generally of our post teams just to bring it all together during the editing and mastering process. So it is fine, as long as it's not awful to start off with. And even then we can make recommendations and either improve the space so it actually meets the criteria that we're looking for, or send them somewhere that sounds nice already. So there are solutions.
Thank you.
Nice. Is that? Oh, hello. God, that really was only half an hour. Bugger. I'll have more slides next time. Maybe a video.
Hello.
Hi.
I was just wondering what you would think would make for a good gibberish VO performance, and what pointers or anecdotal advice, or how would you approach that? So words that are not legible for a character.
As in like faux language or just general nonsense for the sake of...
I would say either, if there's any, or would you say it depends on the approach?
I would say if you want something like sort of like if you're approaching things from like a Simglish kind of mentality, I think it still needs to feel like a language, which means that it needs to have some kind of rules.
Do you think it needs that underpinning cohesion?
I would say so. There needs to be something to hold on to, or else if you've got 5 people who are supposed to speak like Simglish, as it were, then it doesn't sound like a language if everyone's doing their own thing. There needs to be a grab bag of sounds to go for them. So just if everyone's doing that kind of like same range of vowels, then it suddenly sounds like communication rather than just someone screaming and someone slapping their cheek, if you see what I mean. So if you want intending it to be a language, then yes, set down some ground rules as to cool. You can use A, E, I, O, U only, and then go from there, because then it feels cohesive and 2 people bouncing off each other. And then use inflection to denote the meaning of how angrily someone's saying A, E, I, O, U, or quietly, or introspective, or pausing. The emotion can still carry even without the words, if you see what I mean.
Right, yeah, no, that's really handy, thank you.
Cool. I think that's everyone.
Hi, can I ask a quick question?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Hello, hi.
I just wanted to ask, what is your favorite part of the recording process, or working with the different actors that you work with?
My personal favorite bit is normally in every project there comes a moment where I always say like the cart's in motion. So you've put all the effort into getting everything working. You've done the casting, you've done the casting, and you've tested pipelines, and you've worked out technology. And that moment usually just after the nascent stage is where everything's rolling nicely in production and everything just flows. Everyone knows what they're doing. That is my favorite bit, because actors understand what they're doing, and you're bouncing and throwing ideas back and forth. The client is happy because we're obviously doing the thing that they would like us to do, which is delightful. And everyone knows their jobs, and everyone is very comfortable, so everyone can just suddenly relax and just enjoy the process. But it always takes a little bit of getting the very heavy cart moving to get it to that stage. But then once it's rolling, it's always good fun. That's the sweet spot. Endings are sad, so yeah.
Thanks.
Hello, very much over at the back there. This poor person's getting their steps in.
Hey, thanks very much. What advice would you give to clients who attend sessions when there might be something worth mentioning or saying about the performance, but you don't want to get in the way of the actor or actress and also the director?
I'd say one person rather than a committee is easier to contend with, just because recording studios aren't particularly large, for one thing. So if you come with like a team of 5 people, if you've got a spokesperson from the client who is the voice of the client, then obviously we adhere to what they need to do. But have a word with your director, and then the director can communicate best to the actor to get what you need, if you see what I mean. We use different language. We communicate with actors in very specific ways as to help them, support them, because they are in a very exposed position, if you see what I mean. They are then giving their hearts and souls, performing for you, and you don't want to like ruin the confidence, because that buggers everything up. And therefore, just tap your director on the shoulder and have a word, and then they can then translate that into actor to get what you need. If that makes sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Cool. Is that? I can't see. There's a light in my face.
Is that the last question?
I think so.
Because this is your chance. Get them in.
With what voice I have left, I will speak to you.
Yes. Or maybe that's good.
Yeah, that's it. Just
done
use
all
the last bit and we're done. I will be mute for the rest of the time. That's
right. Then we're going to listen to the sound of applause. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much indeed.